All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our second family education night of the 2023-2024 school year. This is one session in a series of 6. My name is Kristen Parson, and I am the IEP liaison for Northstar's Career Center. I'd also like to introduce Holly Peel, who is the director of the Career Center. At the Career Center, we work with juniors, seniors, and young adults with disabilities to help them build career readiness skills as they transition from secondary education and enter the workforce. You can learn more about the different fields that we offer programming in on the Career Center tab of Northstar's main website, or you can reach out to us directly via email, and we'll be sure to post our contact information in the chat shortly. We are also very happy to have Sarah Thompson from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services with us tonight. Sarah has over 15 years of experience working with children and adults in the areas of mental health and developmental disabilities. Prior to joining them as the Supported Decision-Making Community Resource Consultant Lead for the Commonwealth of Virginia, Sarah worked in the Developmental Services Division of a local community service board as a support coordinator, intake coordinator, and quality specialist. Sarah works hard to lessen the stigma around needing support, and we'll be speaking about supported decision-making and supported decision-making agreements this evening. This is a new addition to our series this year, so we are extra excited to have her join us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and I'm going to turn off my camera. Please remember that you are welcome to chat any questions you have, and there will also be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of tonight's recording.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you guys at Northstar for having me here this evening. I'm super excited to meet with you all and share information related to a fairly new initiative in Virginia about supported decision-making and supported decision-making agreements. Tonight, I'm hoping that you guys kind of walk away with a better understanding of what supported decision-making is and what supported decision-making agreements are, the benefits and risks of them to kind of think about what might work for you. Also, I'm going to show you all the documents that we've created in Virginia related to supported decision-making and the supported decision-making agreement. And I've got a handful of resources that hopefully will be helpful to you guys as you kind of enter into this journey of thinking about transition and what decision-making looks like as you become an adult. So the first thing I always like people to start doing is thinking about, what is a choice? What does that mean? And what's a decision? So typically, when we think about the difference between choices and decisions, a choice is usually deciding between maybe two things, and things that don't require a lot of thought or much risk involved in them. Whereas a decision is usually when you are having to decide between two or more things, and those kinds of choices or decisions that you're trying to make are going to have maybe more of an impact on your life. There might be more risk involved. So you've got to really think about them a little bit more. Making choices and making decisions is a lifelong skill. It's something that we all do, and it's something that we all practice and continue to develop as we get older. We all learn from the choices we make and from the decisions we make. However, you have to learn how to first make a choice before you can then make a decision. And before you can make a decision, we'd like you to kind of think about, what kinds of things do you like and not like? What are your strengths, or what are things that you're good at? And then furthermore, if you're going to make a decision, what do you need, or what kind of help are you going to need to actually be able to act on that decision or do what you want to do? The other thing we like to talk about is the difference between a decision and informed decisions, because those are two different things. So informed decisions mean that you need to understand what is the decision that you need to make and what are all of the possible options that you can do. You need to think about the pros and cons, what might happen if you pick one option over another. And then not only just what might happen in the immediate future, but what might happen long term if you make one option. You also have to think about those next steps. What does it mean for you to actually do that decision? And again, what kind of help might you need in that? So have you ever made a decision that didn't turn out well? Think about that for a second. I'm guessing probably at some point, we've all made decisions that didn't turn out in the way we expected them to. Maybe it was something that happened this morning or over the weekend or years ago, maybe when we were first turning 18 for those of us that are adults. We've all made decisions that likely we would want to do over again if we could. But what if because of that one decision you made that maybe didn't turn out how you thought it would, you could no longer vote? You could no longer drive. You could no longer decide if you wanted to work or be in a romantic relationship with somebody else. These are all rights that get lost or taken away when you have things like substitute decision-making or legal guardians. So I just want to review some of the rights in Virginia. When somebody has a legal guardian, things like the right to vote, to drive, to work, to have personal relationships, like more intimate relationships, not just friendships. Thinking about where to live, owning a firearm, or even making decisions about what you do during the day. Those are all rights that can be taken away. So when we think about the options between supported and substitute decision-making, I want you to think about those rights and how supported decision-making, as we talk about it, is a way to continue to support these rights, but still get a little bit of help when it comes to making those decisions. I wanted to show you guys this graphic as I believe Mr. Bellinger next week is going to be talking to you all about some more types of decision-making options. So this graphic shows in Virginia our continuum or our spectrum. So from least restrictive options, meaning options where people can still get help with making decisions, but they keep their legal rights and they ultimately make the final decision for themselves. That's on the left, all the way over to most restrictive. Most restrictive means these are options that typically mean people lose either some or all of their legal rights, and somebody else is making a decision for someone else. So we kind of have this full spectrum. Tonight, though, we're focusing more on the least restrictive side of supported decision-making and supported decision-making agreements. And I have a couple videos to show you guys just from a parent's perspective about supported decision-making.
We help Terrell making decisions by giving him his options, whatever that may be. And if we need to show him any kind of pictures to help make that decision, we do that.
It's part of his growth, it's part of his development to become more independent as an adult instead of always relying on us. I think he's gained more confidence, especially since he started working at Advanced. Like this weekend, he stayed 3 days at his house. This past week, he stayed 3 days at his house by himself. He got up on his own, he got his food ready, got his clothes together, got dressed, and got prepared to go to work all by himself. He was actually up and ready ahead of time, which was quite surprising. I mean, he was sitting there waiting for the ride to get there.
We're proud of him. We're less stressed. It's good to just see him go on with his life, and then we go on with our life, and you know he's okay.
That's the first one for the Brown family, and here is.
So you have to find that balance where we can step in and help him in those weak moments and when he has to make those tough decisions where he doesn't understand, then we have to come in and say, hey, we can help you here. And putting the right people around them is essential.
As they get older, they want to listen to other people. But I think we've made it a point through the years to surround ourselves with people that are there for his good.
You're gonna have some failures, you know, you're gonna have some successes, but you have to go through that. That experience helps both you and them. It's very important that you walk this journey together so you're both growing.
Always include them in whatever decision it is. Present it to them in a way that they will understand. They understand a lot more than we realize.
So that was the Brown family. They are a family from Tennessee. Those videos were videos about supported decision-making that the Tennessee Council on Developmental Services was able to create, as they are a little bit further along on this initiative than we are in Virginia, but we are getting there. So I thought that they give a perfect example from a parent's perspective about what supported decision-making can do for your loved one, as well as what it means for you as a parent, as far as bringing a little bit of that stress and pressure off of you. So decision-making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolutions. Again, like I said, this is something that we all do, you know, and it's a skill that is something that we develop over time. Now, supported decision-making is the decision-making model in which an individual makes decisions with the support of trusted individuals. I also like to add in there trusted resources, because we live in this time where technology is abundant. And so if you've got some trusted resources from technology, that can be a source of support as well. Just like the skill of decision-making, supported decision-making is something that we all do in our lives. It is not something that is solely related to people with disabilities or various diagnoses. We all use people we trust and resources we trust to make decisions in our lives. This is a little bit of the history of supported decision-making. I'm not going to read everything on this slide, but I wanted just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how this has come about and what it looks like internationally, nationally, and then within our own state. So internationally, this idea of supported decision-making really started in the 1960s and 70s with what we called deinstitutionalization. So this idea of moving people from kind of hospitals or institutional settings into their communities, where they receive the supports that they need without being, you know, kind of kept away from their families and friends. So that was kind of a movement that really took on in the United States and Norway. Then we kind of skipped to the mid-1990s, and there are a handful of countries that ended up creating laws specifically acknowledging supported decision-making. So that's like Canada, Sweden, and the United Kingdom all have laws related to utilizing supported decision-making over more restrictive options. In 2006, the United Nations wrote a legal agreement called the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and this was made active in 2008. The goal was really to promote full inclusion and equality of people with disabilities and to ensure that their human rights were truly being acknowledged. Now, again, this is something that was meant for the countries that are part of the United Nations, which right now are 193 countries out of 195. As of right now, only 17 of those countries, though, have done what they need to actually take and utilize and implement the convention and what the convention says. In 2009, the United States said, yes, we agree with this, but we're not going to ratify it, or we're not going to say, yes, we are going to kind of hold ourselves responsible for this and say that we're going to do it ourselves. We just said as a country that, yes, we think it's important. So at the United States, that was 2009 that we said we agree with this convention, but we're not going to put any laws in place requiring that we hold ourselves to it. And so not much happened until the first legal case, which was in 2012. And this actually was in Virginia. Jenny Hatch was a woman who was living independently using this idea of supported decision-making. However, her parents had some concerns and petitioned the court for guardianship. And over the course of a year, Jenny was able to finally prove that no, she could utilize continue to utilize supported decision-making to be independent and make her own decisions. So that was really the start of all of this in the United States. Let's see here. I think the first states that actually had laws were in Texas in 2015, and then Delaware was the second state in 2016. At this time, there are still less than half of the states in the United States that actually have laws recognizing or acknowledging supported decision-making and supported decision-making agreements. For Virginia, of course, we had Jenny Hatch's case in 2012. And then we had several times that the state looked at reviewing supported decision-making, the first one being in 2014. And they ultimately came back with a report saying, yes, this was important to Virginians and it was something that could be beneficial, but not much happened. And some additional studies continued in the state over the years, but it wasn't until 2021 that a bill was finally passed that asked DBHDS, the organization that I work for, to actually look at putting something together that really shows, okay, what can this look like in Virginia and what kind of guidance and support can we provide for Virginians related to supported decision-making. So some of the reasons that we encourage supported decision-making is that supported decision-making increases a person's sense of self-determination. And self-determination is when you are able to kind of have this control of your life. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar much with the Department of Education's I'm Determined program, but they state that self-determination is made up of these three things: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So autonomy is this ability to control kind of what happens to you in any given situation. And this really requires opportunities to practice making choices and making decisions and really working through possible consequences. Competence is when you believe that you have the skills needed to complete a goal. And relatedness is this feeling of a sense of belonging. This can either be with your family, school, within your community, or maybe some other groups that you're a part of. And it's created by having this opportunity again to spend time with other people that you share similarities with. Ultimately, self-determination is a way for people to truly advocate for themselves. So supported decision-making as an actual act looks like someone helping somebody else. And how they can help them is by learning and understanding how somebody takes in information and learns. We all learn differently. So you have to know, if I'm supporting someone, how do they learn best? And make sure that whatever information you provide is done in a way that they understand. The other piece is that we all communicate differently. So you have to know how the person communicates in order to understand what they're saying as far as what their decision is. Then the other piece is knowing what your limits are. What is your knowledge base? If somebody's coming to you for support, it's likely that they look at you as a trusted source. So if they're asking for support in on a subject that isn't something that you feel comfortable about, or maybe isn't something that you know much about, please let them know that and help them find either another person or another trusted resource that could be utilized so that they can ultimately get the information they need to make a true informed decision. In Virginia, we have 4 principles for supported decision-making. The first one is presumed capacity, which this relates to a law that we have in Virginia that says that everyone 18 years or older is presumed to have the ability to make decisions for themselves. And this is regardless of any type of diagnosis or disability. The second one is that when people do need help with making decisions, we should always try the least restrictive option possible, as this maximizes people's autonomy and independence. The third principle says that, yes, we understand there are times that people need even a little bit more support. And when that's needed, say in the form of a substitute decision maker or somebody who makes decisions for someone else, we ask that those people take into consideration and make the decision based off of what the individual says they want. What are their preferences? This is another one that kind of relates back to a law. We actually have a law in Virginia regarding the duties of people that are legal guardians. And it specifically states that legal guardians should be making decisions as if first the individual was making the decision themselves. And if that individual cannot communicate a choice in any manner whatsoever, then the legal guardian makes a decision in the best interest of the individual. And then our final principle is this idea of dignity of risk. So making decisions takes time, takes practice, takes growth. And making decisions with positive outcomes takes more time and practice and growth. So everyone should have the opportunity to learn and grow from the decisions they make. And this is what's that call of dignity of risk. So making a decision that doesn't necessarily have the outcome you anticipated or might have an outcome with some consequences should not be motivation for restricting an individual's rights through things like guardianship or other types of substitute decision making. Now we're going to kind of move over into what the formal process of supported decision making is, which is the supported decision making agreement. So a supported decision-making agreement is a formal process of writing down who somebody wants to get help from, what parts of their life or what kinds of things do they want help with, and what does that help look like. In Virginia, a supported decision-making agreement is made up of at least 2 people. You have the decision maker and at least 1 supporter. And then we also have an option for them to include a facilitator. And we'll talk about all of those in just a second. So the decision maker is the person who is making the agreement. The agreement is all about them because they are the ones ultimately making the decisions for themselves in the end. In Virginia, in order to be a decision maker and to have a supported decision-making agreement, you have to be at least 18 years old. You have to have an intellectual or developmental disability, and you have to be legally able to make your own decisions, meaning you can't have a legal guardian or a legal conservator right now if the court has said that you can't make those decisions on your own. Your supporters are the people that you ask to help you out. There are no rules on who can and can't be a supporter, and there are no rules on how many supporters you have. The only thing is that supporters have to agree to help you in the way you are asking them to be helping you. And then finally, we have this option of a facilitator. And the role of the facilitator is really for them to kind of oversee and make sure that supporters are doing what they say they're going to do based off of what is written in your agreement. So neither supporters nor facilitators are paid to do their jobs. This is really being kind of an informal or natural support. This is not anything that's tied to any type of funding. Supported decision-making agreements are not tied to a waiver service or anything like that. So supporters and facilitators are really saying, yes, we care about you, you trust us, and we are here to support you in the ways that you're asking. I know we already talked about some of the some of the benefits of supported decision-making, being that piece of increased self-determination and independence. But ultimately, people keep their rights and their final decision-making ability, which I think is a huge benefit of supported decision-making. This is also a way to kind of avoid long and expensive legal processes. So doing things like legal guardianship takes time and takes money, whereas supported decision-making agreements can be created for free and they don't involve the legal process right now. So it's very easy to do. You can change them at any time. You can even say, I don't want an agreement anymore, and kind of cancel your agreement at any time. But we also want to acknowledge that nothing is free of risks. And I know that that's usually a big concern for people is the risk that is involved with supported decision-making. However, there have been studies that show that people that have a greater risk or a greater sense of self-determination actually are at less of a chance for being abused and exploited than those with less of a degree of self-determination. So supported decision-making actually increases people's sense of self-determination and reduces those risks of abuse and exploitation. In Virginia, we did create a protocol, though, to address abuse and exploitation. So this just outlines for the supporters and the facilitators what we're asking them to do, and how to go about making a report should there be any concerns for abuse, exploitation, neglect, undue influence, those types of things. Supported decision-making agreements are not a way to kind of do a backdoor guardianship, because ultimately the supporter is the one that's keeping all of their legal rights, or excuse me, the decision maker is the one keeping all of their legal rights, and the decision maker is the one making their ultimate decision. We do ask that supporters do not use their position as a position of power, and that they don't provide kind of undue influence or try to encourage the decision maker to make choices that the supporters want. So they really aren't a way for supporters to kind of take advantage of the decision maker. The positive side about having multiple supporters is that you've got other people in your life that are kind of checking in and seeing maybe if there is a supporter that's doing something that they shouldn't be doing. The other thing that supported decision-making agreements don't do is they don't take the place of things like advanced medical directives and power of attorney agreements. Both advanced medical directives and power of attorneys have their own purposes, and you can have both advanced medical directives and power of attorneys as well as a supported decision-making agreement. They all kind of fit their own need. And on, I'm sure Mr. Bellinger will talk about that some, but on our DBHDS website, we also have a training on decision-making options that goes into more detail about those types of support as well. So in Virginia, we have created the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement template, as well as several tools that can be helpful to with thinking through this process about supported decision making and with creating your own agreement if you're interested. So the first discovery tool that we created is this When Do I Want Support tool. It's a 10-page document that is just a checkbox for each thing. It looks at different life areas and common types of decisions or tasks that you might have to do as an adult. And what it says is, what things can I do on my own without any help? What kinds of things can I do with some help? And what things can I not do at all, even with help? I need somebody to do this for me altogether. And you'll just go down and check for each area. So things like getting my healthcare information. Is that something I can do on my own with support, or I need somebody else to do for me? What about choosing when to go to the doctor? Can I do that on my own, or do I sometimes need some help with that? The really nice thing about this tool is that it goes in the exact same order of the life areas and the tasks that are on the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement template. So if you fill this tool out, it is super easy to then fill out our template for the agreement. The other thing that we've had with this tool is we've had schools use it to help with either IEP goals or independent living things. I've even had people kind of say, okay, well, if this is something I can't do right now, maybe I want to be able to do it with support, so I'm going to work on that. It's a great conversation starter for anybody, whether it's teachers and students or parents and their loved ones. The second discovery tool that we have is the what kind of support do I want? And this is a 3-page document. Again, the first 2 pages are just check boxes with different kinds of common support. So do you need more time to think through your choices? Do you need help creating a pros and cons list? Do you want to talk to people that are experts about the choices that you have or the decision you need to make? Do you need reminders about things? And then the third page gives you the option to write in other ways that you like to be helped, and then ways that you don't like to be helped, because it's just as important to know how you don't like to be helped as it is to know how you do like to be helped. Just like communication, we all communicate differently and we all learn differently. We all like to be helped in different ways. So this has actually been the source of maybe easing some tensions between some parents and some loved ones after filling this out. I've definitely talked to several parents that have said this helped with kind of reducing the stress that they've had with helping out some of their teenagers. And the final tool that we've got is the relationship map. So this is a way for you to kind of map out who's in your life. Who do you feel closest to in your life? Who do you trust, and who might you go to for support or to be a supporter for that matter? So this gives a great visual reference for you. We also have another document that we've created that lets you use all 3 of these tools to kind of look at, okay, based off of the things that I need help with or want help with, based off of how I like to be helped, and based off of the people that I put on my relationship map, who might be a good supporter, who might have the skills and the information needed to help me, and then how do I ask that person to be a supporter? Those are more tools that we've got online. There will be a link in just a little bit that I'll show you guys so you can get to that website. And now we've got the agreement itself. So the Virginia Supported Decision-Making Agreement template covers the same life areas that were on the discovery tool. So it looks at health and personal care, friends and partners, money, where I live and community living, school and education, working, my rights and safety, meeting and talking with my supporters, and then we have this other category, because we know that we can't think of everything for everyone. So we were trying to create opportunities for people to personalize this as much as possible. So that other one, you can fill in anything that we have not covered, you can put it in there. Within the agreement, we have the actual agreement section, which is where the supporter and the decision maker and all of the supporters sign saying they agree to it. We also have a spot where the decision maker could cancel their agreement or say, I don't want this anymore. And if they do that, it's just a little box that they sign and date. It's very easy. If you have a facilitator, there is a separate form for the facilitator to sign off saying that they agree, because they're doing a little bit more than what the supporters are doing. We also have the option for you to get this agreement notarized. Now, I will say that in Virginia right now, supported decision-making agreements are not legally binding, in the sense that supporters cannot be sued for either the support they provide or don't provide, and supporters cannot be held legally liable for the decisions that the decision maker makes. If the decision maker does something to break the law, those consequences go on them, not the supporters, unless a supporter is found to be doing something like abuse, neglect, and exploitation. There are legal consequences for that. But it's not legally binding in the same way that necessarily legal guardianship or a power of attorney is. Having it notarized doesn't necessarily make it any more legally binding, but people did say when we received feedback and creating these documents that they felt a little bit more comfortable having that option of having it notarized, and you can do that. We also have pages where you can talk about or indicate any changes that you make to the agreement. So maybe you are adding a life area that you want support in, or saying, hey, I've developed those skills, I don't need help in that life area anymore. Or maybe you're adding a new supporter and taking away a supporter. We have some easy ways for you to document that without having to go in and recreate your whole agreement all over again. This is the front page of the agreement. And one of the things that we've also included is a place for you to show if you have any other types of supports. So if you have a power of attorney, an advanced medical directive, anybody that helps you with your money, or even we have some release forms that are helpful. So we have a HIPAA release form that can go along to your doctor's offices saying who you want to be able to access your medical information. And we also have an educational release form, which says, yes, I'm still in control of my decisions when it comes to school, but here's who I want you to talk to. Here's who I want to be involved in my meetings and to get information about my what's going on at school. Some of the other documents we've created are things like instructions. So instructions on how to complete the discovery tools, and then how to use those discovery tools to fill out the supported decision-making agreement template. I just told you about the medical release and the educational release. We also have a tracking tool. So once you do a supported decision-making agreement, it's helpful to make sure you give it to the people in your life that would utilize it. So not only do you need a copy as the decision maker, but your supporters need a copy. People like your doctors, your support coordinator or case manager, your school, anybody that might use your supported decision-making agreement should have a copy. Now, that could be a lot of people, and it might be hard to keep track of who those people are and when they got that. And then if you even make an update to your agreement, it's like, oh no, who did I give a copy to and when? We have a tracking tool that kind of helps lay that out, and that way you know who's got copies, and if you do updates, who needs to get an updated version. In addition to the tracking tool, we've got some frequently asked questions, both in plain language. And then we also have the tools that I talked about as far as identifying possible supporters and asking somebody to be a supporter. Right now, our forms are online in English and in Spanish, but if you need another language, please let me know, and we can get those translated. Additionally, all of the discovery tools and the agreement itself are online in a Word document as well as in a fillable PDF version. So if you go to the DBHDS homepage, you would navigate it by going to Get Help, Developmental Services, and Supported Decision Making, or you are more than welcome to take a screenshot or click on the, take a picture of the QR code, and it will take you directly to our website. Or I can put this in chat, I believe. So I can do that at the end. And if you're interested in creating a supported decision-making agreement, how do you do that? Like I said, you don't have to involve a lawyer because it's not necessarily a legal document, but it's really by having conversations with people that you trust. It takes time. It's not something that I would say, yes, sit down and do it all in 30 minutes at one time. It really takes time. So going through those discovery tools one at a time, Maybe take a life area and do that. Do one life area a night or a week for that matter. It really does take time to kind of think through. If you want help with creating an agreement or help with kind of thinking through this process, please reach out to me. It is my job to help Virginians with this. So I am always happy to meet with anybody. I cover the entire state, so I'm located in Central Virginia, but I do travel. I'm also happy to meet on the phone or over Zoom like this if you want to create an agreement or even just kind of talk through the process. So you might be asking yourself, is supported decision-making right for me, or is a supported decision-making agreement right for me? And we give a little bit of guidance with this. So can you take in information and use it to make a decision? Can you communicate your choice in the way that you communicate? It's not your job to communicate so that other people understand. It is other people's job to understand how you communicate. Can you make decisions or choices either on your own or with the help of other people? And are you at least 18 years old? Those are really the big decision makers or the big factors for supported decision making. For the supported decision making agreement, you have to be able to legally make decisions, so not having a legal guardian or conservator, and you have to have that diagnosis of a developmental disability or intellectual disability. So like I said before, we all use supported decision making. It's something that we naturally do in our lives. The supported decision making agreement is more of that new piece. And do I have to use these forms or the supported decision making agreement template? And that answer is no, absolutely not. You can create your own agreement. You can do it in any way that you want to. We do ask, though, if you are creating your own form or your own agreement, that you make sure that it says who you want as your supporters, when you want help, or what kinds of things do you want help with, and how are the supporters helping you? What does that look like? We also ask that you as the decision maker and all of your supporters sign and date the agreement so we know that they're agreeing to what's written in it. And then do I have to have a supported decision-making agreement? No, you can continue doing supported decision-making just like we've talked about that we all do. The benefits of the agreement, though, are that, one, you know who to go to for help when you need it. Sometimes when we have to make a decision, that can cause some anxiety or make us a little bit nervous. And it can be hard to think through what our choices are or who do I go to. But, oh, I already have this agreement written out. So let me go and see, who do I go to when I need to make a choice about working? That's Beth. So I'm going to call Beth because I've got to make a choice or a decision about work. The other thing is it lets people in your life know who they need to include or contact when it comes to meetings. So if your teachers are talking to you about decisions, if your doctors are talking to you about decisions, and you want help with those kinds of things, if they have your agreement, they know who they need to contact and ensure are part of these meetings and conversations. And when should we begin talking about decision-making options? I say it is never too early to begin having this conversation. One, infants make choices. So this skill of making a choice and then ultimately making a decision begins at infancy. So having conversations should begin early. It's not something we should do just at 18 or just at 17 when we're looking at transition. Have those conversations now. You can do the discovery tools at any time. It's not something that your loved one has to be 18 to do. Yes, to have an agreement, you have to be 18 to formally sign off on it. But those tools you can do at any time in preparation for turning 18. And finally, I always like to leave parents with a little bit of a takeaway, which is children learn how to make good decisions by making decisions, not by following directions. So I will open us up to questions, but I'll also put my contact information up here. And then I will open us on up.
Thank you so much for this presentation. This is a lot of information to digest.
It is.
Good information, so many resources to explore. We do have one question in the chat, which I think is a great one. Is there a time frame prior to or following an individual reaching 18 years of age that supported decision-making must be initiated? And the same question goes for degrees of guardianship, if we know, and we can certainly hit that when Mr. Bellinger joins us next.
Yeah. So the answer is no. So you have to be 18 years old to create the agreement, but the agreement can be created anytime after you turn 18. Like I said, though, you can work on kind of that discovery process and talking about it well before you turn 18. You could be 25, you could be 35, you could be 85 and create an agreement. So there's never a time frame where you have to complete it by or have to do one. And for guardianship, it's the same thing, actually. You can do guardianship at, well, the individual has to be 18 to have that legal guardian. But you can petition for guardianship at any time as well. So we talk about the fact that the courts are always open. So trying things like supported decision-making and advanced medical directives, even power of attorney, trying those kinds of things where people keep their rights and their decision-making ability first before doing things like legal guardianship is super important. One, because you can kind of see, hey, can somebody do these things with less support? Or if we need more support, we can always do that. It's easier to add support than it is to take it away. So if, for instance, you get legal guardianship of somebody and you realize, oh, really, they can make decisions. You know, we don't need to have that legal guardianship over them. The process to remove that guardianship is the same process as it was to get it. You have to petition the court, provide evidence, and the court has to agree to it. So that in itself is more time and money. So doing these things that are less cost prohibitive, don't take quite as much time or have the court involved in them first is usually more beneficial for people.
And I have a question to that end as well. We're seeing more and more families consider guardianship, but the intent is for the guardianship to be short-term. We have a number of families who feel that their young people are doing a great job of learning more skills and gaining independence, but they need a little bit of time, maybe 4 or 5 years. And then families are envisioning that the young people in their lives will, in effect, outgrow the guardianship. Do you have any experience, or can you speak to families using these tools during that young adult period as a way of exploring and then presenting this as evidence to the court when it's time to remove those guardianships?
So Jenny Hatch is actually a perfect example of that. She utilized supported decision-making to prove that she did not need a guardianship anymore. These tools are newer, but we are working with Disability Law Center of Virginia to put out, they are working to put out some guidance on how to utilize supported decision-making to then reverse guardianships and restore rights. My understanding is if you contact them directly, they will provide that support, but we're trying to get that information so that it can be more commonly out there.
Sure.
So that is in the works. Once it's done, it'll be linked on our website for sure. But they are a great resource of who you can use right now. At the state, we can't necessarily provide that legal advice as far as how to utilize that, but Disability Law Center of Virginia certainly can.
Well, and I appreciate recognizing too what the different roles are here. I think so many of these resources that you've linked are incredibly useful. And as a person who works with young people with transition planning a lot, one of the things I would also say is these are great tools that can be used as a part of the transition planning process. But an important piece of that would be for parents to share that it's their intent to explore this, because of course that's not a decision that a school can make. And we always want to be very, very sensitive to the direction the family is moving in. But as families are having those transition planning meetings with school representatives and other care providers, doctors, therapists, all those people who are involved in their lives, just explicitly stating, hey, we're going to try out and see how supported decision-making tools can work as we're making plans. That can certainly coordinate some of this assessment and practice and skill building across the board there. So I would invite participants, if you have any questions, to go ahead and pop those in the chat. Thank you to those of you who have done that already. And thank you again, Sarah, for all the work that you're doing on this.
Of course. No, thank you for inviting me. And I'm going to put a few links in the chat box if that's okay.
Certainly. And also your presentation will be emailed out to all of the participants, so they'll have an opportunity to
perfect.
follow those links as well. I spent some time on the website, and rabbit hole is sometimes seen as negative. I would just say it's a rich trove of resources that I spent time exploring, and there's a lot of rich, meaningful tools there that could be used for a number of our students here at Northstar or for students anywhere.
Yeah, and I am always, a lot of what we create is based off of feedback from individuals, from families. So if there are things that you feel like are missing or needed, please reach out to me. I am always happy to receive that feedback. What can we do better? What can we do to support people and actually utilizing this? So please reach out to me. I do strongly take that feedback and implement what we can. We made changes to the website based off of feedback from some families.
Great. So this is going to wrap up the recorded portion of the evening. So thank you to those of you who have streamed this in the future. For those of you who have joined us live, we will have an opportunity to have questions after we wrap up. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are streaming this as well, please check out the Northstar website for Sarah's fantastic presentation with all of the links she included. And also feel free to reach out to either Northstar or Sarah directly with any questions or follow-up information. So thank you again, Sarah, for your time.
Thank you all.